Okay, well, I think I'm seeing 6:03. I'd say we'll go ahead and get started, and I'm sure we'll pick up a few more people. We still are picking up people, which is great. Um, I welcome you all this evening. I'm Lori Benson. I'm chair of the First-Plymouth Church Climate Action Team. This is the second of our two-speaker series on energy, including mostly featuring energy for the future and how to get the most energy for the least damage to the climate, and some new ideas and so forth. So we're very pleased to be offering you this series. Our first session featured Dr. Michael Weissession with Washington University in St. Louis. You can find the recording of that on the First-Plymouth Climate Action Team webpage on the First-Plymouth website. And that's the page you were on to get the Zoom link for this evening. So if you go back to that same page, you'll find Dr. Weissession's talk. It was absolutely brilliant. So I recommend that to you. He did a very nice job of talking specifically about Nebraska and a lot about wind and solar and the pros and cons and costs and how we can store energy. Very interesting presentations. I recommend that to you. And you'll note we also have some other videos from some earlier sessions last fall and this spring archived as well. And I recommend those to you. Before I introduce tonight's speaker, I'll mention one other thing that we, the Climate Action Team has coming up. We're a co-sponsor with a number of other groups of a group of Mennonite college students who are riding their bicycles across the country talking to people about climate change. And they're going to be in Lincoln and have a little ice cream and a chance to talk to people on Thursday, July 1st at First Mennonite Church. And again, you'll find more information on our Climate Action Team webpage about that. Personally, I can't imagine riding my bike across the country. I can barely make it across town. So I'm going to turn out just to support young people who care so much about climate change that they're willing to do that. Plus, then there's ice cream. So this evening, before we get started, before I introduce our speaker and he gets started, I want to, he's going to do a Jeopardy-style game that you can play along from home. So my recommendation is, if you've got them, use two devices. If you want to play along, if you want to just watch, that's fine too. It'll still be interesting and fun and so forth. But if you want to play along, if you got a little competitive streak, then I would suggest, if you're watching on a laptop or a desktop, grab your smartphone or maybe your iPad and use that to play along. And it doesn't matter which device you do which with. It's just so much easier with two devices. So I'll recommend that to you. So grab that second device. And then second, I think probably we all know this now, a year into Zoom, but up in the right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see View. And once the speaker shares his screen, actually, do you want to go ahead and do that, Mark? Share your screen. Okay. Now that he's shared his screen, and hopefully you're seeing also some faces in addition to that. And at the top of the row of faces, you'll see a single line. And if you click on that, all the faces will go away and you'll just see the screen. And the reason that's kind of helpful is I found when we tested this yesterday that the faces were covering up some of the questions on the screen. So you might want to minimize the faces. I'll ask you to hold off for just a second until I introduce our speaker so you can see his smiling face though. And I will mention two other things. If you would please mute your microphone and turn off your camera. So those are shut down for now. That'd be great. I don't know if we'll have time for questions. It kind of depends how the game goes here and how much Mark has to tell us in between questions. But if you have some questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we will get to them if we can. Just no guarantees on that. So with that lead in, it's my pleasure to introduce this evening's speaker. Marc Shkolnick has served as manager of energy services for Lincoln Electric Systems since June of 2007. His department is charged with providing comprehensive and customized customer experience for the City of Lincoln's industrial, commercial, business, and residential customers. His team is also responsible for administering the utility's energy efficiency, demand response, customer-owned renewables, and emerging technology programs. Previously, Marc spent 14 years in the alumni relations profession, serving as executive director of the Colorado State University Alumni Association and as associate executive director of the University of Nebraska Alumni Association. An Omaha native, Marc holds Bachelor of Science in Education and Master of Education Administration degrees from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. He currently serves as a member of the Electric Power Research Institute's Electric Vehicles Advisory Committee, American Public Power Association Smart Energy Program Review Committee, and as a member of the Lincoln Center Kiwanis Club's Board of Directors. We welcome Marc for this evening's presentation. It's all yours, Marc.
Well, thank you, Lori. Thank you so much for inviting me to participate in this evening, and thank you to all of you who've tuned in for this. I hope that it meets your or exceeds your expectations. The topic of energy efficiency can be occasionally a little dry, and so I found that, after a year or two of being, well, first of all, I came from alumni affairs and I knew absolutely nothing about the energy industry at all. And there are a couple of people on the line tonight that would suggest I still don't know anything about the electric industry. But actually, I've been fortunate to have had a wonderful staff and a wonderful set of colleagues who I've learned a great deal from over the last 14 years. And have learned so much. So you have to learn the basics of the industry, which is a fairly complex industry. You also have to stay on top of the emerging technologies. And during the last 14 years, it is breathtaking at what is developed, from energy efficiency, particularly in the lighting field, to the last 10 years in electric vehicles, solar. Both utility and customer-owned solar, utility scale wind, the development of battery storage. It's just been an unbelievable time of growth and development. So I have really been fortunate to have had learning opportunities to kind of stay on top of it. But I also know tonight that we've got some preeminent experts in the fields. For example, Don Cox, I think, is online. He is a preeminent electric vehicle expert. So I have a category in the game called electric vehicles, and I'm going to be sweating it out, hoping that every answer I have up there is correct, because I know that if it's not, that I'll be corrected as I should be from one of the preeminent experts in our community. So without further ado, I'm going to have you who have mobile devices like an iPad or a mobile phone like this, go to the web address on your mobile device. You can use Chrome, you can use Safari, you can use whatever browser you use on your phone to look at the internet, and go to bravozone.us. I put that in the chat as well. It's this address, bravozone.us. You'll be prompted for an ID number, and you just simply want to put in 0060. And I can see some folks are already putting their names in there, and that's what we want. And so we'll just take a couple minutes to give people a chance to enter in that web address in their browser, and then put in the ID. You'll be prompted to put in your name and hit submit. If you would rather use a QR code reader, you can use this little QR code here and scan that from your phone, and you'll be able to go right to bravozone.us. So while that is going on, and while you're all submitting your names, tonight's prizes for the top 3 after this Jeopardy game is played will each get one of these LED flashlights, which you can only get from LES, because they're LES flashlights. So if you're not served by LES, that's okay. It's all right. Just don't call the outage number listed here if you're in a different utility, if you happen to experience an outage. So it looks like we're getting some folks up on the board, Lori. Some of you want to make sure you don't put in the ID number. Looks like a couple of you might have. So we've got a couple 0060s. Make sure you put your name in there. I don't think we can go back and change that. So, well, so there will be a few 0060s up there. So you may not know where you fall, but that's okay. The point of tonight's exercise not only is to have a little bit of fun and competition, but it's also to spark conversation around topics and issues. So I'm fine with us talking a little further about a question that comes up, and we'll check the right answer. You'll all have a chance to ring in. And then if there's a little question about that, we can pause for that. There's nothing that says we have to get through all 20 questions that we have available. The way the game works is that in just a moment, I'm going to put up the categories that we're going to be discussing. You'll be shown a question, and then you'll use your mobile device to enter the answer. They're all multiple choice, so you'll have your choices. And the sooner you get the right answer, the more points you get. That's how it works. And everybody will have 30 seconds to answer each question. But it is played Jeopardy style. So we'll pick a category and then a dollar amount, and it will not go too fast. You should be able to keep up. Looks like we've got a good number of folks here entered. And if we're ready to go, I'll just give another 10 seconds. We still have a couple folks putting their names up here. If you're not able to play with an interactive device like your phone, no problem. Just write down. You can always write down your choice of what the right answer is on a piece of paper and see how you do. It's all about really discussing the issues. The competition is secondary, or at least it is for me. So I think we're going to start. And our categories we're going to talk about tonight is renewable energy, energy efficiency, home energy savings, and electric vehicles. Those are going to be our 4 categories. And we've got 5 questions per category. So we have a total of 20 questions. And looks like we have a guest. You can admit that person here. I'm going to have Lori pick the first category and dollar value to start with.
Okay, well, I'm going to pick renewable energy and hope that we don't cause Dr. Weiss' session from a few weeks ago to weep. So okay. We'll do renewable energy for 100 and see how it goes.
Okay, so I'm gonna click on this. It's gonna pop up a question, and you all will be given the 4 possible answers on your mobile device. So you want to press on that as soon as you figure that one out. Don't forget, the earlier you ring in with the right answer, the more points you get. You have 30 seconds. Here is the question. And we're going to start with the cover. So there's not a question here. So before we get to the question, this is a map showing where LES in particular gets its wind generation. Depending on your utility, your wind generation may be pretty much all in Nebraska. For those of you who are LES customers, we have power purchase agreements. In other words, we purchase all of the output from a number of different wind farms located throughout the region. So we have over 100 megawatts of wind in Nebraska, but we also have agreements to purchase wind from a farm in Kansas and also down in Oklahoma. And what that does is it gives us some diversity, because today, like, the wind is really blowing. It's a hot day, it's blowing wind. Very likely we're getting a lot of wind production here in Nebraska, but we don't know what is going on in Oklahoma. Maybe it's not blowing and we're not getting as much production. So having that diversity is really helpful for us to generate more renewable energy. Here's the question. According to NREL, approximately how much energy per kilowatt of solar should an unshaded southerly facing array produce in a year? 500 kilowatts hours, 10,000 kilowatt hours, 1,500 kilowatt hours, or 5,000 kilowatt hours. You can ring in as early as you want. We're getting people putting in their responses. We've got 72% of our registered. We've got about 3, 2. All right, so 83% of you got in with an answer. So the question is, per kilowatt of solar, how much energy would you expect in a year on an N-shaded southerly facing array? And the correct answer is C. About 1,500 kilowatt hours a year, give or take a little bit. That is how much energy is produced per kilowatt of solar on a southerly facing array in an unshaded, unobstructed view of the southerly skies. Now, there is a really nifty tool, and I wanted to bring it to your attention, put out by the National Renewable Energy Labs. It's pvwatts.nrel.gov. And so what this is, it's really a neat tool. It's free. You put in your zip code of where you're living, and you might want to see how much energy you use in a year. And let's say you're trying to generate an equivalent amount of energy from solar. You can find out how many kilowatts of solar you need. This is one of the outputs you get. It tells you monthly what the energy output would be. And you can see, obviously, in the summer months, you're going to get a little more production, and in the winter months, a little less because of the sun being lower in the horizon. But if you put in the energy rate of your utility, the energy rate, it'll also tell you what the value of that energy would be for a year, okay? So I invite you to check out pvwatts.nrel.gov. It's a great tool, and it can kind of give you some information on how much you could expect from a solar array and help you make, if you're interested in solar, give you some more information on that. And right now, looks like Addie and Energy Hack are tied at first place. Okay, so Addie, if you want to unmute yourself, I'm going to have you pick the next category and dollar value. And if by chance anyone has a question, you can unmute, or you can put it in the chat, and Lori or my friend at First-Plymouth can help relay those questions on to me. Addie, if you want to unmute yourself.
Sure, I'll do energy efficiency for 100.
Okay, here we go. Everybody ready? Here's the question. I start with this. Hopefully many of you remember this. This is the Easy Bake Oven. And does anyone remember what was used to bake a brownie in the Easy Bake Oven?
It was a light bulb, right?
It was an incandescent light bulb. Now, the miracle of light is, let me not suggest that wasn't an awesome invention, because it was. It was a dramatic invention. But I think we were so mesmerized by the incandescent light that we didn't really think about how we could make it more efficient. So this light bulb, this incandescent light bulb, and I forget which wattage was used, if it was a 60-watt light bulb or 75, it produced so much heat that it could bake a brownie, right? So that leads into my question. The percentage of energy wasted as heat to illuminate an incandescent light bulb, is it 25% wasted, 90%, 50%, or 10%? Still have a few more to enter in. All right, we're up to 78% of our registered users here. All right, let's see what the right answer is. 53% of you said that 90% is wasted, and 53% of you are correct. 90% of the electric energy that goes into a light bulb is wasted as heat. And so what's interesting is if you look at electric vehicles, and we're going to have a whole category on that, The efficiency of an electric vehicle is a marvel compared to an internal combustion engine. The amount of heat loss is dramatically less in a battery electric vehicle than it is in an internal combustion engine. And the same principle applies. So the energy efficiency of LEDs, for example, is in the fact that more electricity is used to light the bulb, less is wasted as heat. Energy Hack has taken the lead by 3 points. And Energy Hack, I'm going to have you unmute yourself and select the next category in dollar value.
Home energy savings, 100.
All right, here we go. Sounds like Carrie, am I right? I think. The approximate percentage of total energy used for heating and cooling an average home is, each year, is 20%, 85%, 55%, or 75%. Got 8 seconds left. Oh, somebody got in right under the bell. And so the correct answer is C. Just over half of energy is used for space conditioning. And so when you're thinking about trying to save energy, that's the first place to start. Energy Hack remains in first place. I do want to say that if you think about it, you've got your air conditioner, and you've got your heating system, gas furnace or electric furnace. And maybe if you have electric backup heat, you might have a heat pump, which is a much more efficient way to heat a home and try to reduce the amount of use you have on your electric furnace, because that uses a lot of power and a lot of energy, whereas a heat pump actually uses less power and provides heat transfer from the outside into the home. But it also speaks to the importance of making sure your home is well sealed and insulated too. That has to do with thermal energy, as well as having a thermostat that you could perhaps program, like an internet connected thermostat. Those are all ways that you can manage the 55% of that energy consumption, which is going to thermal space conditioning. Energy Hack, I'm going to give you another chance to pick a category and a dollar value.
Electric vehicles, 100.
Electric vehicles for 100. Approximately how many miles of range per hour does one typically get when charging an electric vehicle at home using a 240 volt charger? 10 to 20 miles, 3 to 5 miles, 40 to 50 miles, or 75 to 100 miles? All right. Well, I wish it was 75 to 100 miles, but it's a little bit closer to letter A, about 10 to 20 miles, maybe a little bit more than that. But when you charge what's called like a level 2, they call it level 2 charging, when you're plugging a charger into a outlet that you would typically charge a or would operate a dryer, for example, you can get at least 10 to 20 miles of range depending on your vehicle. And Lincoln is just a great city for electric vehicles, because a lot of round trips in Lincoln are within that 10 to 20, 25 mile range. And so, you can easily get around and with just an hour's charge. Most people charge overnight and get multiples of that. But 10 to 20 is about in the ballpark of what we'd expect. And for those of you who are new to EVs, there are 3 different levels of charging. There is what's called level 1. Some people call this trickle charging, but essentially you're just plugging into a standard outlet. And with that, you're going to get about 3 to 5 miles of range per hour. Overnight, when you've got a number of hours where you're just charging the vehicle, that's efficient. And a lot of people do plug into a standard outlet in their garage because they don't have to necessarily rewire if they don't have a 240 volt or outlet available. Level 2, as I mentioned, you're going to get a little faster charging. You're going to get a little bit more range per hour. And so there are different levels of amperage from 12 to 80, typically 32 amps. And then for the very fast charging, particularly along the highways, you'll find DC fast charging. And that is a much, much quicker charge. A lot of power is used for the DC fast charge. And here it says 80% charge in just 20 to 30 minutes, and those times are coming down. There's a lot of investment that is taking place in the DC fast charging in the public infrastructure that will allow easy travel across the highways and the interstates, so people don't have to worry about the range of their vehicle. I'm going to pause to see if there's any questions about EV charging.
So on that last one, how many miles would you get then if you did it for 20 to 30 minutes on a fast charge?
This is going to get you probably 80% charge. I'm going to say, and Don Cox, I'm glad he's on here. I'm going to say that's probably going to get you, what, about 100 to 200 miles of range? Don, do you want to unmute yourself? Or Don Nelson, I know you've got Tesla S, and
I can put 300 miles at a Tesla charger in about 45 minutes.
Okay, so it's gotten that fast. All right. So, you know, and
where are most of the chargers located?
Yeah.
I heard at one time they were going to be at most of the Hy-Vees, but I don't know.
Okay, so the first thing, we've done some research in this area to find out where folks charge. Well over 90% of folks in Lincoln charge their vehicles at home, right? So that's where most of the charging occurs. However, you're saying, well, what about when I travel over the highways? So there are DC fast charging stations along the Interstate 80. About every 80 to 90 miles. There's fast charging stations in Grand Island, in North Platte, in Lexington, I believe Ogallala. There are several websites that have all of the charging stations across the country. I use plugshare.com. That will show you where all of the stations, not just the DC fast charging, but the level 2 stations. In Lincoln, we've got level 2. That's that middle level charging station. 3 of the Super Savers, or 2 have fast chargers and level 2s. There's one coming to the Waverly Super Saver, or Russ's, one of the 2 stations or stores. There are a number in all of the garages downtown. And then all of the high schools have put in level 2 chargers. And so the footprint, the number of public charging stations has increased pretty dramatically. The new U-Stop on 70th and Pine Lake has, I'm not sure if I think they're fast chargers, 50 kilowatt fast chargers, DC fast chargers. But if you have an electric vehicle and you live in town, most of your charging will occur at home. Did I hear somebody trying to come in? Yeah.
I was going to say we have one on West O at Casey's.
Yes, Electrify America has 2 350 kilowatt and 250 kilowatt DC fast chargers. So there's also the Tesla stations at the Hy-Vee on North 27th Street. Those are just for Tesla vehicles. The Electrify America stations are for any of the charger vehicles that can accept a DC fast charge. So the number has really increased over the last few years, and we would expect that would continue.
What does it cost to use one of these charging stations?
That's a great question, and it will really vary. If you're looking at a level 2, it's about $1 to $2 an hour. So usually a couple of hours should be sufficient of charging at a level 2, depending on what your state of charge is. When you get to the DC fast charge, then it can cost a little more because you're getting a lot more power. And so there's more expense related to delivering that power. And it can be in the 35 to 40 cents a minute to charge at DC fast charge speeds. Great questions. This is great. We're going to move on to our next question and see where we go here. Laurel, I'm going to have you unmute yourself. I know you're second, but I'm going to give you a chance to pick a category and a dollar amount.
I don't think I'm second anymore. I really bombed out on the last question. I don't think you've totaled again.
Well, that's what it's got here, but if you want to pick a category and dollar value, we can go with that.
Okay, well, let's do home energy 300.
Home energy savings for 300. Okay, here we go. Which of the following appliances uses the most electrical energy per year? Is it an electric water heater, a dishwasher, a clothes dryer, or a refrigerator? Okay, so certainly not a dishwasher, but we're split amongst those three. Well, the correct answer is an electric water heater. So if you have an all-electric home and you're looking at where do you look to reduce your energy, we of course said in the beginning you want to look at your thermal conditioning, right? Your air conditioning, your furnace, the envelope of your home, your thermostat. But the next place to look is your water heater. And you can adjust the setting on there. Of course, you want to put it at a comfortable setting. You want it warm enough to your liking. Low flow shower heads can help too. But if it's time to replace a water heater, an electric water heater in particular, there's a great technology called heat pump water heater. And that can save about 50% of the energy by going with a heat pump water heater. That essentially transfers heat from the ambient air into the water tank, and it supplements the heating, and it reduces the amount of time that the resistance heating in the water heater needs to run. So if you're ever in the market and you're looking for an electric water heater, I strongly encourage you to consider a heat pump water heater. And there's a federal tax credit currently available for the next 2 years. I think it's in the $350 range. And LES, if you're in our service territory, we have an incentive of $500. So when you add all that together, you're pretty close to what it would cost to get a conventional storage tank water heater. It's a really good technology. Lori, go ahead.
So it costs about $1,000 now, doesn't it, to get a new water heater? Would that reduce the price that much? Or are these new heat pump water heaters quite more expensive?
Heat pump water heater will run in the $1,800 to $2,000 range. And so if you're taking our incentive, that's $500. Now you're at $1,500. And then you take if you're able to take the full federal tax credit, $350, now you're about $1,200. So maybe a couple $100 more than the conventional water heater, but you're going to make that up in savings in about 2 to 3 years. Okay, so it's a good technology. They are larger in size, so you need to make sure that where you put that is a suitable location. It does remove heat, so if you've got a basement finished and you're putting it somewhere where it's exposed, it will remove some of that heat during the winter months. So you can either shut down the heat pump during the winter months because you don't want heat going into the water heater if you're trying to heat the basement. It's perfect for unfinished basements or where the water heater is isolated from the rest of an finished basement. It's a great application. Looks like we have a chat here. Is a heat pump water heater better than a gas water heater? Not necessarily. If you have a 95% efficient gas water heater, those are pretty efficient. So to switch from gas to electricity is going to cost money on top of the water heater itself. So that may financially not be your best option. When you get into the high efficient gas equipment, those are pretty efficient. Let's see, Lori, do you want to pick the next category in dollar amount?
Yeah, I don't know how that happened, but so you know, just a little tip that something I discovered many years ago, and I think other people do this too, Mark. But during the winter, when I run my dishwasher, I turn it off when it gets to the dry cycle and just open the door.
Yeah,
and
sure.
That adds some moisture and humidity, and it's a little less energy usage. So, in the repair guy couldn't think of any reason why that would be bad for your dishwasher. So.
Yeah,
anyway,
sure.
I'll take electric vehicles for 200, please.
All right, here's the question. Which is true of a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle? A, it uses regenerative braking. B, it typically is powered by battery first. C, it is capable of being powered by gasoline, or D, all of the above. Well, I think you're all correct. It is all of the above. So that is, you know, some people get into the electric vehicle by going with a hybrid electric vehicle first. They want to have maybe that the ability to go beyond, you know, a range that they would question whether a battery could take them. The fact of the matter is that the new ranges coming out on all electrics are pretty remarkable. But a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle is also a great option, particularly if you're just driving around town. And I know that there may be some on this Zoom call that haven't visited a gas station in months, and they have a plug-in hybrid because almost their entire travel is done on their battery, which can be in the 20 to 30 mile range in a hybrid. So, you know, there are a lot of models out there. They're great vehicles. And so if you're not ready to take the leap into an all electric vehicle, a plug-in hybrid is also a good option to consider. I'm going to have Kay unmute herself and pick the next category in dollar value.
I will suggest renewable energy for 200 points, please.
All right. Renewable energy here. The average cost of an 8 kilowatt PV roof mount solar array before federal tax credit incentives is about $5,000 to $10,000, $15,000 to $20,000, $20,000 to $25,000, or $25,000 to $30,000. Yeah, so it can be kind of a mystery as to what these systems may cost. The correct answer is about $15,000 to $20,000. Now, they're typically, if you can take advantage of a 26% federal tax credit, that will help lower that first cost. And LES provides an upfront capacity payment that can amount to a couple $3,000, depending on the size of the system. But you're still looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of about 10 to 15,000 after you factor in the federal tax credit and those incentives. So that kind of gives you a ballpark of what the costs would be. And then these are some other considerations if you're looking at solar. Again, know that the federal tax credit is out there. It's a 26%. It'll be that way through this year and next year. And then we'll see what Congress does with it. Your utility, if you're in the LES service territory, your utility does provide an upfront capacity payment. It's based on the size of the system. And then you also want to think about the savings that you'll accrue by reduced energy charges. And I capitalized energy because there are fixed costs on your bill that typically aren't impacted by solar. Your customer charge, the cost for the infrastructure in town, all of that is typically embedded now in a fixed cost. It's the energy It's the energy rate, the energy portion of your bill that will be impacted by solar. And I just stress that because we have seen some solar companies go out and they quote the price of energy at like 10 or 12 cents a kilowatt hour. Well, what they're doing is they're taking the fixed and the variable energy rate and they're combining them together. And that's really a bit of misinformation. They ought to be looking at what the energy component is. For LES, that's in the 5 to 8 cents per kilowatt hour range. And that's what will be reduced when you have solar energy serving your home. If you produce more in a billing period, the utility will provide credit for that as well at usually the wholesale or slightly above price. But I do want to stress that you typically will have a fixed customer and facilities charge, and that will remain no matter what size of system you have on your roof. In terms of the costs, you want to consider the cost for the purchase and installation of the system. If you're going to finance that, you want to work that finance charges into that as well. There's typically additional insurance, not significantly high insurance, but there is some additional insurance you'll want to put on the home. And there is a component to the solar system that converts the DC power from the solar into AC to go into your home. Well, typically the inverter will last you about 10 to 15 years. Solar arrays typically are warranted for 20 to 25 years. So if you're looking at the life cycle, you'll want to price in the replacement of an inverter in about 10 to 15 years. So those are just some of the considerations if you're looking at solar.
Mark,
I do have.
I was going to say a couple questions. You maybe are seeing those in the chat.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I did see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is hail a problem? Honestly, in my conversations on this topic with various solar dealers, it hasn't been a major issue. Of course, we've had a couple of pretty significant hailstorms in the last 5 years, but they are rated up to a certain level of hailstone. That's where your insurance will kick in as well. So I don't see that as a major deterrent for putting up solar. The next question is, if you are interested in solar, who do you need to contact for? That's a great question. Where do you start? I would suggest you start with your utility to get the facts, and then they can provide you with a number of different contractors who do solar installations. Now, the utilities won't tell you who you ought to go with. That's not our business. But we can tell you who's been putting them in. And then we always recommend getting at least a couple of bids and checking references, doing your due diligence, because this is not an insignificant purchase, right? We're talking about at least $10,000 to $15,000, depending, maybe more, depending on the size of system you're getting. It's not an insignificant amount. So you want to do your due diligence. You want to get a couple bids. You want to check references. And you want to make sure you have the facts. You want to know what your energy rate is. You want to know what your fixed customer facility charge. You might talk to the utility about what they'd use to, if you predict the future of where's energy going to go over the next 20 years. It's a very difficult thing to forecast, by the way. But sometimes you'll get solar companies. I haven't noticed it so much in Nebraska, but outside the state, they'll come in and they'll predict that energy is going to go up 5% or more a year. But we haven't experienced that for the last decade or so. We can't honestly rule that out in the long term because it's so hard to determine things. But 5% a year is pretty aggressive, and we just haven't seen that. So you just want to make sure you have good facts because solar installers are paid to put in solar. I will tell you there's some very credible folks here, at least in Lincoln and probably in Omaha and elsewhere, that are doing a good job. And one of the solar installers, in fact, talks to folks about, have you sealed and insulated your home? Have you gotten energy efficient appliances in your home? That's where you start. Because if you have a well-sealed and insulated home, sometimes you don't need as big a solar system because you're not wasting energy. So the size of the system may be reduced, saves you money. And that's where you start, is the energy efficiency part. Great questions. All right, let's move along here. I'm going to have Lily. If you don't mind, Lily, if you want to unmute yourself. Looking at the clock here, we've got about 12 minutes to 7, and I don't want to go past 7, so we've got time for a couple, 3 more questions. Lily, you want to pick a category and amount?
Home energy savings for 500.
Home energy savings for 500. Thank you. All right, here we go. Which of the following is an advantage of an LED versus a compact fluorescent? LEDs last longer, they use slightly less energy, are ideal for dimming, or all of the above? All right. Well, I think those who rang in are right on target. It's all of those things. You know, the thing about an LED is it is more efficient than a compact fluorescent, but not by a lot. The thing about an LED is that the number of hours that it should last compared to a compact fluorescent. Now, I do talk to people who say that their LEDs haven't lasted as long as they had thought. There are a wide variety of manufacturers of these lights. It's always good to go with a reputable manufacturer, but they're really a great technology. They are kind of a cool, you know, you can get them in a variety of different wattages and different lumens, different colors, and they do last. Typically, they last quite a bit. You know, you can put them in a hard to reach area and not worry about having to change that light every year. It's up there. It's going to be up there for a long time because it should last a long time. So the LED is really a great advancement in lighting.
I like to put the dates on them and then see how long they last.
There you go. There you go. And, you know, I have one slide. I'm not sure if we'll get to it, but I think it's pretty remarkable. In 2011, Philips came out with the first commercially available LED light bulb. Does anyone want to guess what that light bulb cost in 2011? And you can unmute yourself if you want to register your guess.
I had a friend who bought one for 25 bucks.
Okay, that's not the price. It was higher than that. The price of that first Philips light bulb that came out was $50. It might have been a 40 or 60 watt equivalent. $50 for one light bulb. Now you can go into Ace or a big box store and you can pick one up for probably about $1 to $2 a bulb. So the prices for that technology have come down dramatically in a relatively short amount of time. Let's see, John Trout, I'm going to have you pick the next one.
Energy efficiency for 500.
Okay, thank you. Energy efficiency for 500. It's defined. Energy efficiency is defined as leveraging technology to do less using more energy. It's no different than energy conservation. It's leveraging technology to do the same or more using less energy or none of the above. Yes, I think 32% of you are right on the money. It's leveraging technology to do the same or more using less energy. And that's what we've seen in air conditioning. That's what we've seen in lighting. That's what we've seen in Energy Star appliances. Essentially, that's what we're seeing in electric vehicles. It's leveraging the technology to get more of what you want using less energy. And it's a lot of times it's reducing the amount of heat loss, like in the incandescent light bulb versus LED light bulb. A lot of heat loss is being reduced and you're getting more efficient outcomes. Let's see here. Carrie.
How about renewable energy for 300?
All right. According to NREL, the percentage of homes that are ideally suited for solar, that means not shaded, the roof has a southern or western exposure, is 75 to 80%, 25 to 30%, 90 to 100%, or 50 to 75%. All right. So 37% thought it was 50 to 75%. The actual answer is 25 to 30%. A lot of people don't think about that. Is your home ideally suited for solar? Meaning, is there a good southerly facing rooftop that's unobstructed, not shaded, that has a clear view of the southern hemisphere or the southern skies? You will get your best solar production for southerly facing arrays. And you do get a marked decrease in production, but still some if you're westerly. But there are a lot of homes that aren't situated like that. And so utilities have started what are called virtual net metering programs. So if you've got a home that isn't well situated, or you necessarily can't afford to buy solar, or let's say you're renting, you don't have control over what goes up on the roof of an apartment building, you might choose to participate in a utility virtual net metering program in which they have a large solar farm and you get a share of that, and the energy produced from that then is applied to your bill. You also pay to participate as well. And so whether or not financially that's a good deal, it really depends on what the energy costs are over time. But it provides an option for those customers who don't have a home that's ideally suited for solar. I see a couple questions. Let's see, okay, my mobile device lost the response screen. Oh, okay. All right. Okay, cool. All right. I think we've got time for one more question. Is that good? Is that okay, Lori?
Well, let's see.
Or do you want to just open things up?
If no, why don't we see if we can squeeze in one or two more, Mark?
Okay.
And,
I want to respect the time. Yeah, I want to respect the time. I'm going to have, boy, Laurel is just mopping it up here. Laurel, why don't you pick a category here? Question. Have Laurel on mute.
Energy efficiency for 400.
Okay, $400, energy efficiency. Here's the question. Which of the following are true about a heat pump water heater? It uses approximately 50% less energy than a conventional water heater. It uses heat from the ambient air outside to help heat the water. It is currently eligible for a federal tax credit, or all of the above. Well, that means that a lot of you were listening to my evangelism for heat pump water heaters a little earlier, because all those things are true. It does use about half the energy. It does remove heat from the outside ambient air to help heat the water, and it is eligible for a federal tax credit. This little diagram shows how it works. Essentially, the heat pump sits on top of the water heater. It's removing the air from the warm air from the surrounding area of the water heater, puts it in, and you got yourself your heat pump water heater. It's a great technology.
So Mark, here's a suggestion with only a few minutes to go. Why don't you pick the next ones, and we'll do kind of lightning fast and see how many more we can get.
All right, we're going to do lightning then. All right, here we go. Renewable energy 400. Photovoltaic solar primarily uses what property of the sun to generate electricity? Light, heat, magnetic fields, or none of the above? We are now in lightning round. Okay. And the correct answer is, it is light. 63% of you got that right. That is correct. Sunlight hitting the solar panels, converting that to DC power, and that's inverted to AC to use in the home. If there's excess at any time in net metering, it goes out onto the grid. And then at the end of a billing period, the utility will true up with the customer if more was exported then was used, then the utility will pay you for the extra energy you exported to the grid. We will do $500 renewable energy. Peak output of a southerly facing solar array occurs between 5 and 6 p.m., midnight to 3 a.m., 12 to 1 p.m., or 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Smart group. Smart group. The correct answer is 12 to 1 p.m. as the sun is overhead. Now, it would help utilities if the peak output was between 5 and 6, because that's usually when our peak demand occurs. Here's a load shape back in 2015 on a hot day. You can see that at hour 1700, we had a peak demand, but solar peak usually occurs about 12 to 1 p.m., a little bit earlier in the day. And want me to just do a couple more here, Lori?
Sounds good.
All right, home energy, or this is just energy efficiency. Electric consumption per person has flattened over the past several years. What are the major contributors for the decrease in use? Changes in demographics, advances in technology, increased federal and state energy codes and standards, or all of the above? The actual correct answer is all of the above. In fact, nobody had selected increased federal and state energy codes. Of course, you put all of the above, but really that's been huge, because having the lighting standards really got us from incandescents to where we are with LEDs. But the increased standards for air conditioners and heat pumps, water heating, all of that's had a huge impact, but so has technology and demographics as well, because we're seeing more younger people getting into smaller, not single family homes, but more apartments, smaller square footage per person. We see empty nesters also downsizing, so demographics plays a role as well. All has an impact on the amount of energy consumed. But there's that $50 LED that came out in 2011, and here's one that you could pick up anywhere here. And that first LED, let's see how many were listening. How much was that first LED in 2011? Oh boy. People were listening, Lori. Usually people check out about halfway through on my deals, so.
A $50 light bulb certainly catches the attention of,
It sure does, but you have to kind of be a technologist if you were going to spend that much on an LED. But boy, the prices have come down, and so has the adoption. The adoption's gone up significantly. Of course, the answer is $50. So we're right at 7, and I don't want to overstay my welcome. Are we okay to bring this to a close now?
One more. Okay.
All right. I'll go. It's not me. I just respect your time. Let's go on to electric vehicles for 300. Which country leads the world in the number of plug-in vehicles on the road? The United States, India, Norway, or China? Well, I tell you what, for the folks who selected Norway, if you look at per capita, they would be. There's, I think, about a third to 40% of new vehicle purchases over the last decade in Norway have been electric vehicles. A lot of governmental policy has driven that, but the actual correct answer is China. China is driving the world market on electric vehicles. They have several million on the road, and there's nothing wrong with that, because they're the economies of scale and the advances in battery technology. China is in terms of just sheer numbers, is the world's leader.
Yeah, more people.
And so you see, in this case, the growth has been pretty significant. There are a lot, and this was sales. This is just in 2020, by the way, 1.25 million in just 2020. The United States here at 328,000, but our numbers are going up as well. And Norway, per capita, again, they continue to lead the world.
Mark, does that include PHEVs? It's Penny Greer.
Yes.
It does.
Yeah, I believe it does.
Okay.
But I think that in those nations, the all electrics, I don't think that plug-in hybrid electric vehicles cover they don't pass the federal muster in Norway and China. So I would believe that almost all of those are all electric vehicles.
Very good. Well, thank you so much,
Oops.
Mark.
I'm sorry. Let me stop sharing.
Okay, there we go. Okay. Mark, that was great. Thank you so much. Very fun and very informative.
I tell you what, Lori,
okay.
I want to get Kay and Addie and Laurel's. I want them to email me their mailing address. And I'm going to do it one more time, Lori. My email address is going into the chat. And so here it's in the chat, and I'm going to put my name in there. And so Kay, Addie, and Laurel, if you want to look in the chat, drop me your address and I'll send you your prize. Back to you, Lori.
You know, I have one of those that I bought a few years ago, and I keep it in my travel bag, and it is great. I've had it a long time, actually. But anyway, so lucky prize. So thank you so much, Mark. Very interesting. I just want to remind folks that LES and whatever utility you may have has a lot of valuable information, offers programming on a regular basis with more information. Mark and LES are offering a sustainability week here coming up in July, culminating with an electric vehicle event on July 24th. And so watch for that, take advantage of it. And let's all embrace a new energy future together. And I'll mention for the climate action team, we have a number of events on the drawing board for this fall and early next year. And so watch for that as well. If you're interested in we've got a little email list to kind of keep folks informed when we have something going on. Let me know if you'd like to be added to that list. You won't get spammed. We only let you know when there's something like this that we have going on. But I want to thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. And again, a big thanks to Mark for his time in a fun, interesting presentation. So thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.